The intent of this YouTube channel is to develop videos that explain how Bridgewater State University Professional Tennis Management Program has taken up the play, practice, play approach to teaching tennis. The video channel connects to International Tennis Federation's Play and Stay and Under 10s program, where rescaling of the court and equipment with the intent of making games accessible to more players as they start to learn to play using red, orange, green balls and courts. We consider how Tennis Canada's Play, Practice, Play progressive tennis approach offers a guide to teaching the foundational skills of playing tennis. We also refer to United States Tennis Association Net Generation Initiative that has promoted modified equipment that are tailored for all ages and ability. Ecological dynamics considers how living organisms form processes of action, perception, and cognition. Drawing on constraints-led ideas, this perspective advocates a rescaling of equipment to create the environment, mediated by well-designed tasks to facilitate learning. Focusing on the relationship between tennis opponents, we consider how player skill development emerges as it forms an interactive process with the opponent and the environment. Affordances, we refer to what the environment offers the player to achieve the task at hand. This means constraints like the rules that condition play, but also the setup of the play area, the use of the modified equipment, or the actions of the opponent that offer some types of restrictions, but also opportunities. Game-based approach to teaching tennis using modified games is promoted in tennis teaching programs worldwide. Play, practice, play aligns with the teaching games from the staying approach often taught in physical education and promoted around sports programs in the world, where instructional practice starts with a modified game that are based on simplified versions of the adult game. Key information elements such as the rules, equipment, game structures are adjusted to facilitate skill learning or to emphasize tactical concepts. Games can be cooperative in nature, working with a partner to achieve a challenge, or competitive in nature, where the intent is to win the point to win the game.
From game played, learners engage in a practice designed to improve skill and the tactical application of that skill. Then learners return to the initial game and apply their new learning.
Tennis Canada has embraced this play first, then practice to then play again in what they have designed as a team approach through their systematic, progressive way of coaching tennis. The play, practice, play approach is summarized in the model, as you can see. The key in this approach is starting a lesson with players organized into small teams. After a suitable warm-up, they play a modified game, scoring points for their team. The game encourages students to play different opponents and is typically set up with the player scoring for their team in a limited time period. It's set up to emphasize a stroke and a tactical idea that a tennis teaching professional wants to work on from one of the three categories, such as I can rally, I can start a point, and I can play net. The core of this approach is promoting fun through challenging games and social interaction, with the player learning the need to work on a certain idea being emphasized by the modified game. With different levels of success, the tennis coach can then work on a practice process to develop a certain fundamental skill related to the tactical idea to help the players improve in their ability to play the game. But key is that the players practice a fundamental and then return to the game to apply it to gain a tactical advantage. They perceive a connection between the game they have played and the skill fundamental they are practicing, a perception-action connection. The approach advocated by Tennis Canada connects to ecological dynamics in learning to play tennis by creating affordances that encourage players to engage in the game. They also promote a team idea where players playing for a team encourage them to feel a sense of team affiliation, they're playing for their teammates, and they're playing against a variety of opponents. Tennis Canada and the ITF promotes games that build in this idea of rotation of opponents, allowing players to learn from different players. Critical in this approach is that all players are learning by adapting their actions based on the outcome of a point and how different opponents respond within the game structure. A cognitive theory of learning called enactivism, related to research on artificial intelligence, refers to this as a participatory sense-making process, a movement conversation. Cognitive engaged individuals become part of a coupled system. For tennis players in a game, each point is a learning experience, a movement conversation, as they strive to gain advantage, continuously testing each other, adapting to each other, developing more refined skills. Key idea is that players need to continually search for different solutions to the same problem, a process of trial and error adjustments, until their actions more effectively adapt around the affordances in their environment that they can attempt to take advantage of when they play the game. This participatory sense-making process is a movement conversation when two players become part of a coupled system. The coupling means that the action of one player is mutually connected, enabled, or constrained by the game structure and the actions of the opponent. This embodied movements, both consciously and non-consciously, create continuous interactions between the players, communicating intent in the competing action spaces in the game. We will talk about how to modify and create sustainable competition by building on this idea of coupled action spaces in modified games. Close games for sustainable competition, modification by adaptation, and action spaces. In this particular video, we focus on how to create games based on constraints-based learning ideas that adapt to the players to create a close game encounter where anyone could win. For close games, both players must be able to take advantage of the affordances in the game structure to challenge the opponent. Close games create sustainable competition that promotes play, where the outcome of the game is unpredictable. Each player can challenge the other. The game is a serious endeavor, but the result is only important for a moment, and it prepares the players to want to compete again. In sustainable competition, the setup is to promote and match the action spaces of the players. By action space, we refer to how in a game, a player moves and makes decisions based on their utilization of time, space, force, and risk tactical concepts. To promote action spaces, games are designed where for the players, 1. Affordances in the game design promote tactical concepts, 2. Skill development emerges in relation to tactical problems, and 3. Games are designed to create opportunities for optimum challenge. Simply put, in modification by adaptation, the game outcome leads to the game rules being adjusted to challenge the winning player. This initial rule intends to create the conditions for structural coupling, to allow complex learning to emerge for the player in relation to enabling constraints in the game structure. The intent is to draw diverse players into compatible action spaces, where their affordances in relation to the game design offer them movements and decisions that promote a more equitable opportunity to succeed. For example, a tennis modified game where two players, A and B, in the service box across the net using a slow bouncing red transition ball. If player A wins the game, then her court width could be increased in size by adding the doubles court trem lines area. Then players could play again. This time player B can make use of the increased target area to hit to the spaces to challenge player A. If player B was to win, then the court spaces could become more compatible. However, if player A won again, then the other service box could be added and the players could play the game once more. Eventually, player B would learn to tactically use the increased width of the space to beat their opponent, who is being challenged to defend the space despite their initial superior ability. In becoming more dominant in the game, player B could become attuned to the need to learn how to hit the open spaces, thus creating the ideal situation to practice the fundamental skills like body setup before the ball bounces and impact point of the ball in front of the body at waist-knee height to direct the ball into the open court area. Encourage players to engage in successful decision-making and perceive the need for and benefit from practicing the skill fundamental cues. In modification by adaptation games, the game becomes the teacher. The scoring system causes an adaptation that helps the player appreciate a tactical concept, like hit the spaces to make the opponent move. Then, when suggested skill fundamentals are taught by the teacher, like body setup and impact point of the ball in relation to the body, players can practice these in movement patterns in relation to the needs of the game, and then apply them when they return to the game to play the games that promote this close competition. Videos, we will explore this idea of modification by adaptation further in relation to team games, the benefits of playing diverse opponents, and the interesting idea we have noted called non-conscious behavior mimicry.
So in summary, tactical concepts, the subcomponents give you an array of things that in every point you are in effect using in order to try and gain an advantage, and these become useful components to identify through questioning as a tennis teaching professional, because you can allow players understand how these components affect the play. That's the idea of the play practice play approach, is we're trying to develop this perception through participation. The concept you've seen in other videos in our playlist talk about in motor learning perception action coupling, and its ability of the players to coordinate their vision, and that includes the anticipation of time and space of the ball coming, their movement and the force that they can generate when they strike the ball, and how they combine those things becomes a critical aspect of their play. And then this participatory sense-making process only happens when you play with others, and therefore by playing with others you start to understand where's the risk in your game against theirs, how can you gain an advantage, and it's only through playing games that you really make sense of how to understand these tactical concepts. Or shown here and below listed are resources associated with today's presentation, and the key message to take home is developing tactical awareness leads to skill development. Thank you for listening.